I mean this so literally when I say, how are y'all justifying having kids right now? Like, I'm so serious. In today's climate, like with everything going on, how the fuck?
Fertility rates are the lowest they have been in a very long time right now. And people are constantly asking, why are people not having kids anymore? Why do women and families want to opt out of having children? What's happening? And let me tell you, there's many reasons people are choosing not to have kids, but the cost of having children is a major factor. There are many families that want to have children that simply cannot afford it in today's economy. So just to put it into perspective, I'm going to show you my daycare bill for this month. Okay, I have 2 kids in daycare. They are both toddlers. We go to a town-based daycare center. It's kind of run by like the rec department. So it's not a center-based daycare. It's not some fancy schmancy daycare. But if you look, you will see that I'm paying just over $3,000 a month for 2 children to attend daycare. $3,000 for 2 children. Now, if you're doing the math, you'll see that's just shy of $40,000 a year. But I do have 4 kids, which means on average, for the last 5 years, we paid anywhere between $50,000 and $60,000 a year for childcare because we are paying for camp and after-school care and school breaks. We're paying for care. The cost adds up, and it doesn't go away when they get to school age. And here's the thing: childcare was always expensive, but it continues to skyrocket. It is one of the fastest rising costs in our country. Families are choosing not to have children because they simply can't afford childcare, and oftentimes they can't afford to leave the workforce because the cost of housing and groceries and everything else that you need in order to raise a child is also insanely expensive. So it is a very sad fact, but many families are opting out of having children right now because they simply cannot afford it.
I'm going to say something that will make some people upset. I think we need to normalize regretting having your children. I'm a therapist and I work with kids, teens, young adults, as well as parents. And there are so many parents who have been vulnerable enough with me in their therapy sessions to admit that they regret having their children. Now, before you shame those parents, these are really, really good parents. Now, these aren't all parents that I work with. It's just an emotion that does come up in therapy that I don't think really gets talked about, because if they were to say some of these words out loud or to other people, they would get shamed for it. And don't get me wrong, these are amazing parents. They're great parents. They love their children. They would do anything for their children. They would never give their children up. But it's just talking about the emotion of regretting having them.
So I'm scrolling through the Regretful Parents subreddit, which has always been kind of a fascinating subreddit that I try not to read too often because it makes me sad. It's hard to see people regretting such permanent choices. This one says, I love my daughter, but this isn't for everyone. I miss my space, a quiet house. I miss my old body. I miss the person I was before her. Being a parent is the hardest thing ever, and your kids will never understand how hard it is unless they become parents themselves. There are so many things about my life right now that I love so much that I wouldn't trade for the world. I love my quiet apartment in the city. I love my freedom. This is why we deserve more comprehensive education on what it is and what it really means to be a parent, so people aren't left surprised and disappointed that it isn't everything that they thought it would be.
I regret becoming a mother. I wish I had never had a kid. Now that I know what I know, I wish I could go back in a time machine and not make the choices I did. As a young woman in my mid-20s, these are questions that I think about a lot. Do I really want to have kids? Will I regret having kids? Is everything you sacrifice in motherhood really worth what you get in return? If these are questions and feelings that keep you up at night, I really highly recommend Regretting Motherhood, a study by Orna Donath. I listened to the audiobook and I found it extremely helpful as a young woman who's trying to decide whether or not I want children. The study is written in a very digestible way. You don't need to be an academic to understand it, and you get to hear from a plethora of women who talk about their regrets when it comes to motherhood. I think it should actually be required reading for any woman out there.
I'm 39 and happily child-free, but every so often I'll wonder, is it true? Like, do you have to have kids to have a life that's worth living? Just you gotta have so many kids. Is it true? And then I found the subreddit, Regretful Parents, and I have learned it is not true. And if you're on the fence about having kids, or if you've decided not to have kids, but occasionally you're like, is this the right decision? Go to that subreddit, because you will learn that there are a shit ton of parents who regret their children.
I genuinely will never understand how some people can give birth to multiple children when they know they can't afford it. I say this respectfully. Because hear me out. It's one thing if you have one or two by accident. Life happens. We can't control that. But what we can control is after the third, fourth, fifth child. At that point, you are more than well aware of how much a child costs and the financial burdens of it. I want multiple children too, but I know that I can't afford it right now. So I would never put my child in a situation where they have to live a hard life because of choices I made. I would never want to do that because I have been there as a child. I didn't live a very good life. I don't want to do the same thing my parents did. Worst thing you can do to a child is literally not give them a good life. That is literally a form of neglect. If you're going to have the child be able to support them financially, have a roof over their head and food on the table. If you can't do that, then maybe it's not wise to have the third, fourth, or fifth child. Like I said, one or two, I understand. Things happen, life happens. Unforeseen circumstances happen. But after the third, fourth, and fifth one, like, you're aware at that point. And if you're going to have a child when you know you can't afford it, you're just going to give them a hard life, which I don't think is fair to the child because they did not choose to be born. But you chose to have another child when you knew you couldn't afford it. That's just my take on it. Do not take this offensively, guys. I'm literally just giving my opinion. Feel free to give yours, but it's just the truth.
I'm really gonna let y'all know right now, the child-free people are not mad at the people with kids. We're not. Because what's worse than having a long ass day at work, working 8 hours, 12 hours, you don't feel good, your head hurt, and you gotta come home and hear mommy, mommy, mom. No, y'all can have that. Y'all can have that. I'm about to go in my house, pour me a glass of wine, and sit in silence for an hour because I can. Because I can. That's what y'all be mad at. Y'all just want some, y'all want some peace and quiet too, and y'all be upset that y'all can't get that. I'm sorry. Drop them kids off to the grandparents, drop them off to daddy. Get you some peace and quiet, because mothers, you need it. Don't go crazy. Don't crash out. Get you some peace and quiet, because best believe the people who don't got kids, we fucking love it.
See, I'm currently in Korea right now, and the other day on the national television and on like the national radio or whatever, they were literally doing like a low birth rate crisis special program thing. They were basically these like programs to make to like basically encourage Korean people to, I guess, have more babies, and how the government is working towards that. See, but the thing is, motherhood is a scam. Motherhood is the biggest scam, like one of the biggest scams like of history. Now let me get into this, because I mean, in the past, yeah, in like our mothers, our like grandmothers era, they didn't really have a career choice. Like they didn't really have a choice. So like they were forced into motherhood. So first of all, like that was a scam. And like nowadays, it's kind of a scam because motherhood was just like so expected of women, and like nobody really told women, and like nobody really gave like little girls a proper education of what can actually happen when you become a mother, when you become pregnant, and you know, basically when you decide to participate in like this reproductive thing. The government would push, and by the way, this is not just about the Korean government, but the society and like the government would expect you to become a mother and just push out babies, but there is no proper education on motherhood and pregnancies for women. Like nobody tells you at schools, or like, you know, the society doesn't really tell you as a woman what will happen to you psychologically and medically when you decide to become pregnant. Or, well, you don't really decide to become pregnant sometimes, but that's another story. And nobody really tells you what will happen to you psychologically and what will happen to your body. Like nobody told me until like I found it on the internet that they literally just cut your perineum I think, open, and then just like stitch you up when you have a natural birth. And nobody also told me that you will basically be on your period for like a whole entire month after you give birth, because your uterus has to cleanse out like all this stuff that was in there because of the pregnancy. Like, these are the things that the society doesn't tell you, but simultaneously they want you to have babies without telling you about it. So if this is not a scam, I don't know what is, because to me this concept sounds very, very scammy. Like, it's giving like false advertisement with very, very fine prints that they don't tell you to read about. You know what I'm saying? It's very much giving like a scamish contract with a little teeny tiny clause saying, by the way, like this is like all the bad things that can happen to you. So like, maybe start on that. Maybe start on like better educating and like how to, you know, deal with those things better, prepare a better government like infrastructure around that, you know, like instead of just, oh my gosh, please have more babies because we need more workers in the future so our economy would not collapse. Like, sometimes things just feel so dystopian for a woman.
You were on the fence about having kids, but you ended up having kids. I want to know, stitch this.
Here's the quick backstory. I wanted kids. My wife did not. Before we got married, we had a conversation. I basically said, I could be happy not having kids with you. And she said the reverse. If she was ever going to have kids, it would be with me. Great. We get married, 5 years go by, she's almost 40, which was the cutoff date that we decided. So we say, fuck it, let's try. And now here we are. We have an 18-month-old, and this is where we're at. All joy and no fun. It's the title of a book and a saying or whatever, and it very much encompasses the experience that we've had. We had a really rough first year, early pregnancy, complications, NICU, small baby, feeding problems. It was very stressful up until 13 or 14 months. And at this point, the difficulty of parenting shifted from the actual baby and keeping them alive, which we could do, to ourselves and us as a couple. And that has been so much more difficult than actually like parenting itself. The good news is it has gotten easier on all fronts every day, even just a little bit. And I can see a future in the next year or so in which fun comes back into our relationship and to our lives. And that's a hard selling point to tell someone, to tell you that you may not have very much fun for 3, maybe 4 years. And I know there are plenty of people that have kids and they love it and they would tell you the exact opposite, but that just hasn't been our experience. So would I do it again with the knowledge that I currently have? Yes and no. Here's the no. I still maintain that my wife and I could have a very fulfilling and full life without children, except you would need to completely erase all of the knowledge and the existence of this tiny human from my brain. If that could be done, then yes, I could do a child-free life. And the reason the no is obviously because we love this child, but also this experience has been way more impactful and different than anything else in my life. I can't even compare it. I had cancer when I was 19 and I had like a 50% chance of living, and that doesn't even come close to comparing how world altering this experience has been. And now that I know, I don't want to unknow. I will say, we've asked this question of some of our friends who we feel like had similar outlooks about children, and pretty consistently, they have said something along the lines of, I started to love being a parent and I started to have a lot of fun at around the age 3 or 4. Again, I know, that's kind of a hard selling point. What I'm about to say is not helpful, but it sounds like you could have kids and the beginning part might be really hard and you would feel like you've lost a lot of yourself, but you'd get it back, and ultimately you wouldn't regret your decision. And also, you could not have kids and you would have a great life and you wouldn't have any regrets. And I think both decisions are valid. There is a tiny, small, little silver lining to being on the fence if you decide to try and have kids, and that is that you are okay if it doesn't work out. And so the act of conceiving a child becomes so much less stressful. We have so many friends that desperately wanted kids or are trying to have kids, and they are struggling, and it is not a fun experience, and it's just stressful, and that sounds awful. So I guess there's that. I don't know. Good luck. You'll be okay either way.